fire granted the variance on my property to put the tower in. It wasn't close enough to the tower in. Far enough away from the property lines. Far enough away from the property lines. It was subsequently appealed by the planning commission. When I talked to Tom about it, he just told me it was just my tough luck. He just told me it was just my tough luck. So I came to the planning commission meetings. They took it to court. Judge Smell ruled in favor of the zoning commission. They upheld the variances, but it was appealed in the appellate court, and through the attorney I've been talking to, no one ever showed up at the appeal. They went through all the trouble, they filed all the appeal papers, and just no one ever showed up. If I'd have known, I would have went. That would have been maybe what I needed to get maybe compensation. I'm not really opposed to the tower itself, but I'm opposed to the fact that I had to give up property to have it built with no compensation on my part. I got to see the thing every day. I look at it, but it's affecting one of the lots I have in my little subdivision down there. So I've got one lot I can't sell now. And I just wonder why no one ever went to the appeal. That was basically my question. Why they went through all the motions, get everything set up, then just didn't show up. My lawyer said they let it lapse, they let it expire. And that's basically what I'd like to find out.
Thank you, sir. Next resident's Leslie.
Will someone let me know?
Yeah, we'll respond after everyone's done for public input, sir.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Qualey. I live at 10025 Firethorn Drive in North Huntingdon, and I am here to represent the community voice that is in favor of the senior living facility. I would like to recognize that there are many people at this meeting and in previous meetings who have very serious concerns, and I respect each and every one of those concerns. I, too, have homes within a half mile, including Country Hills, of the Laurel Avenue and Carruthers Lane site. So I can appreciate where these people live. I too live within that area and drive that area 4 times a day. I remain confident and excited. I'd like to say that I've had many people who know my passion for this particular project who have asked me for help to get their mother to reside at the senior living facility. I've had people who said, my dad is a veteran, would love to live in a facility like this. What can I do? Every single person that has asked me about this opportunity have been residents of North Huntingdon and Irwin. So I know we have a very big agenda tonight, so I would simply ask you to consider the voices of the community who do remain in favor of this very worthy and respectable project. Thank you.
Thanks. Next resident's Brian. If you could just come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Brian Lust. I live at 9908 Deerfield Drive. The backyard where the senior citizen, couldn't make the meeting last time, but the senior citizen housing is going to be. I'm all for the senior citizen and VA thing. I'm all for that. I have brothers that are veterans, have mothers. My aunt and uncle lived in home care centers, and I work for a company that we go and I make artificial limbs, and I work for the VA. So I'm all for that. But the area behind our house is not suitable for it. Because one reason is there's a pipe, 8-inch pipe that comes out the back of my hillside when it rains, and you know how much rain we have been getting the last couple of years. It comes out of there like a fire hose. Where's the water go? Nowhere. It goes down that hillside. I've lost 5 feet of my land behind my house within the last 5 years. Another thing is too, we do have trouble with the tree apartments. It was probably 6 years ago, I had police in my backyard that I came out the backyard, and Officer Wenzel was one of them that I helped up the hillside, that there's, I hate to say it, but people down there shooting up, and they catch them behind my house. If you put that there, you might have a problem with that because of the people that I'm not against that, but it's just like everything is flowing the wrong way. I'm all for the project going somewhere, but go somewhere else. There's land right across the entrance of Walmart. Ask Excella. I'd go over and ask Excella, say, can you give me that land? It'd benefit for them. They can go to their doctors. They can walk across the street to go to Walmart. Where they got to go, you got to drive a bus up a road that Carruthers is only 6 tons and Laurel Avenue is only 6 tons. A bus is way much more than that. And when they start to move dirt from there, what's the truck's going to do? Triaxles. Yesterday, I was coming home, made a left-hand turn on the Carruthers, car truck coming out of Marathon there. Nobody could make a left-hand turn. There was a truck stuck with his back end out on the 30 because the truck was coming out of Marathon to get on the Route 30. Everybody had to wait. It's just a nightmare in that area. And I pay mine subsidence insurance in my house because about 7 years ago, they drilled a hole, they dug a hole beneath Deerfield to let the water out to run onto Laurel Avenue. Well, the water runs out of there all the time when there's rain. In the wintertime, it's a sheet of ice. That water's not going to stop because we live up on a mine. Everybody knows Pennsylvania, it's all mines. And so I'm just asking you, I'm all for it, but maybe they can find another place to put it somewhere. Thank you.
I believe our last resident's Jara? Jana, sorry.
Hi, I'm Jana. I live on 9759 Laurel Avenue. We have lived there, I think, since Country Hills has started. Unfortunately, Mom just passed at 95 and lived there from 20-some years old. Crothers Lane. We grew up there and we used to call it the dirt road. And it's still basically still the dirt road. Caving in the sides, never stopped, never was fixed. I really don't know how, as far as the trucks and everything that's going to go across that, is going to be able to go across that without caving in even more so. It was bad years ago as I was growing up. Cars flying on there then, cars still flying on there. We have tried speed bumps. Speed bumps were there. Didn't work. Speed bumps come out. We had stop signs at Country Hills. We had stop sign up at more closer to the church. Those came out. So as far as the speeding wise, I don't know how you're going to stop the speeding, don't know how you're going to stop the traffic from coming that way. Walmart, shortcuts, every which direction. Then the house is going across the street at Laurel Avenue also, which is also from Fred Crack. He bought those. There's sewage already in, there's gas already in. There's another, 13 more houses going in there, which is more houses, more people going up and down Laurel Avenue. I wasn't here last week, but the week before when the gentlemen were back there talking, they kind of said there towards the end that they wish that they would help us bring our minds to meet theirs and approve the senior living place. We're not against the senior living place. But at the same time, what about the families that already live there and have lived there for many years? We're coming up on seniors. Why not us? We need help there. We've asked how many times for have that road fixed. And it does nothing. The Laurel Avenue's been widened how many times? But they can't go any further down the bottom of the hill because you can't do nothing with Crothers. So I don't mind the I'm sorry, nervous.
Take your time.
The senior living place, I do agree. Seniors do need a place to go. But yet again, I agree with everybody else. I do not believe they need to be in where the sewage plant was. With all the road chippings and everything else, landfill and everything else that went on top of it. The sewage plant is still there underneath. It has all the springs and the borders and everything else. It's still underneath there. I'm sure they can dig it up and do whatever they need to do with it, but I just don't think it's the best of place for them to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's end for residents' input unless anyone else wants to speak that didn't have a chance to sign the book when they came in. Not seeing any response to citizens' input. I think we already responded to Tom. I think I can echo for the board. We really appreciate your dedication to the community. It's a great honor to have you as part of our community, and you're a great leader for it. And I believe Jerry spoke to the cell phone tower. Solicitor Alexander, you want to maybe touch on that? I believe you're...
Sure. As Mr. Bogdan indicated, the zoning hearing board granted Verizon and TowerCo a variance to construct a cell tower on property next to Mr. Bogdan's, and the Board of Commissioners chose to file an appeal to that variance, arguing that the zoning hearing board erred in that decision. The appeal was heard by Judge Smale in Westmoreland County. Judge Smale wrote a lengthy opinion dismissing the zoning appeal and affirming the decision of the zoning hearing board. The Board of Commissioners decided to take an appeal to Commonwealth Court. Briefs were filed, and the hearing date was coming up. And all through the process, the attorney for TowerCo was talking to us about ways to resolve the case, and it seemed to me in my discussions and then talking it with the board that it turned into more of a financial issue as opposed to a health and safety issue with the property. And I know that originally TowerCo had offered Mr. Bogdan, I believe, what he had paid for the property, which was around $35,000, and that was rejected. And there was some discussion, well, what would make this happen to resolve it, resolve the appeal? And the board said that they wanted TowerCo to get a fair market appraisal for what Mr. Bogdan's property would be worth, and to offer him that amount of money. And he could either take it or he could leave it, but that would resolve the case. So that's what they did. They went out and got an appraisal. I think it appraised for about $75,000, if I'm not mistaken. They made that offer to Mr. Bogdan, and Mr. Bogdan's response was, no, I would rather you build the tower on my property and give me the land lease that you're giving the folks next door.
No, that's not correct.
Well, I have the emails that say it, but regardless, that was treated as a rejection, and the appeal was withdrawn. Nobody didn't show up for the hearing. The appeal was withdrawn at that point.
I sent an email between me and the TowerCo attorney that
Excuse me, sir, if you want to speak again, usually it's not a give and take, but if you want to speak again, you can come up to the podium. It's-
I never got a $35,000 offer. They offered me $3,000, and I rejected it because I paid $35,000 for the property. He called me back right before the appeal was to take place and said he would offer me $75,000 for the property. I thought, okay, that's a fair price, but could we talk about maybe just leasing what you would need, leasing the bottom end? I didn't want to sell the whole place. I want to build a house on the top end. I told him I didn't really need to sell the whole property. I'd be interested in some type of leasing arrangement that would probably be far less than $75,000. He just never responded back. I have the email. I kept them all just in case. And I never said, no, I wanted to build on my property. I really didn't want it on my property. I just wanted to be compensated for the drop zone and the part that Tom McGuire promised to waive on my property there. That's the only thing I really wanted. I said I'd just be happy with some type of lease, with that bottom end down there where you need the extra land, and I would have been happy with that. I didn't reject the offer. The guy was always kind of below board, that Joe Parati. He just was just not seem a very up.
Evidence of what you're saying, or is this just your opinion at this
I
point?
have the email that he sent me.
No, but I mean, as far as he's putting words in your mouth, things like that, do you have actual proof of that?
Yeah, at
Or
one
is that
point I
hearsay
talked to
at this
Mr.
point?
Alexander, and he said that he said, I was under the impression you guys had a deal all worked out. I'm like, no, we don't have a deal worked out. This guy is just saying things to keep the process moving. I haven't written
Can
down.
I ask, were you made two offers
I
for your
was offered-
property?
I was offered $3,000 just to not make any waves, just as a goodwill gesture. And then as the conversation progressed, he said that I have to sign the property over to him.
Okay, but were you offered the 75,000? Was that offered to you for that?
At the end, he said we appraised it, we'll offer $75,000.
And did you accept that?
I told him I'd like to talk about it more, I'd like to see if we could take a lease instead of the
Okay, so
75,000.
Did you accept the offer or no?
I guess not, because I just
Okay.
said I wanted to.
Okay, I just want to be clear on the facts.
Yeah, I could look at the email again. I said, in lieu of selling the property, I'd like to consider a lease. So I didn't really say no, I just negotiated that I'd like to provide him a lease instead of selling the property, because I wanted to keep the upper half. I didn't really need to sell the whole thing off.
Okay, so you were offered some sort of financial compensation twice, which you did not accept either time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I would kind of also echo what Solicitor Alexander stated. The Board of Commissioners at that time was upset with the planning and zoning decision, so we went to the appeal process, and we came to the conclusion that we would be comfortable with a fair market price. That's why we had them appraise the value, and that's when the township removed themselves as part of the process, and then became a process of a property owner versus independent company.
Right.
Any other further board comments? All right, I believe all the other residents that spoke tonight was speaking on Grandview Senior Residences. That is on the agenda tonight if the board would just want to discuss that at that time. All right, approval of meetings minutes for the special meeting 3/10/22.
Motion to approve the special meeting.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and I. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. For the regular meeting 3/16/22.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and I.
Aye.
Opposed? All in favor by state and I.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Staff reports, Public Works report, Director Albert. Anything to add to your report tonight, sir?
I have nothing more to add.
Any questions for Public Works tonight?
I do. Rich, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Can you fill us in on the storm grates at the bottom of Ormsby and Niagara? They seem to have been dropping lately.
Yes, we're aware of that, and, we started working on our inlet repairs.
I saw the cuts in the asphalt.
Right, and obviously, this time of the year, after going through the winter months, we have issues with our inlets, and, we have plenty of them to do throughout the township, so we're moving on it.
Okay. would you be willing to put some cones down there? I saw the bar, but the cones are missing. And that one, if you're coming off Niagara onto Ormsby, boy, that's a heck of a drop. So I was wondering if you could get some cones down there to make sure that people don't drive over that.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, thanks, man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
I do have one thing for Director Albert. I was contacted by a resident, Lynn Jesko, on Bernice Drive, and when I asked her if I could share it tonight, she said, absolutely, please do. She wanted me to compliment your staff. They came out to do some road repair. Her exact words were prompt, courteous, and efficient. I don't think I could ask for anything else from your crew. So please pass that along from us.
Well, thank you, and I'll pass that on. I have to be honest with you, though. It was really a coincidence that we were able to respond in such a quick manner. It just kind of worked out that way. Under all the circumstances that are going on right now in Public Works, as far as lack of manpower, all the issues with equipment, materials, the supply chain. It's been very difficult this year. It's almost like a damn chess game. It truly is. I mean, you think last year I had the issues with, hoping that we'd get through the road program with enough pipe. We just barely had enough pipe to get through our summer season last year. I went ahead and was able to stockpile some, thinking we're in good shape starting the season this year. And, we get thrown another curveball. The asphalt plant's shutting down. It just shut down yesterday for a month. Right here in April and May, they're going to be shut down for a month. So, that's going to set us back some. Equipment problems, getting parts, our street sweepers, a year ordered now, and I don't even know if they started building it. It's just one thing after another. So I'm glad we were able to take care of her in such a quick and efficient manner. I can say that, that's not going to be the case all the time. It's just very difficult. She was fortunate, and I'm thankful that, that she took the time to address our efficiency and et cetera. Our guys do a hell of a job, and they are kind and polite with dealing with the residents. Again, I'll pass that on to them. And I wish we can continue working at that level throughout the season, but I doubt that's going to happen. So,
Anything else for Public Works? Thank you. Park and Recreation Report, Director Miller. Anything to add to your report tonight?
No, nothing, thank you.
All right. Any questions for Park and Recreation? Thank you,
Thank you.
Director Miller. Police report, Lieutenant McCurdy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're good.
These things
Doesn't
ain't.
seem like they're coming on.
Any questions for the lieutenant tonight on the police report?
Is it on?
Here, try this one.
Is that one working? All right, you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool, thanks. The only thing I'd like to say is the three new hires, Officer Berg, Pacina, and Carter, they're doing very well. They're progressing very well at a great pace, and we hope to have them out on the road by themselves real soon. So it will help our manpower issues, and hopefully we can target the areas that we need to target, specifically in speed. We know that's a constant spring to fall, late fall issue with our community, and it always has been, and we're going to try and address it as much as quickly as possible. We've been out on Morris Avenue trying to get the speeds down there. We're doing another study up on Robbins Station Road. We got some data from it. The device that we have up there that's pacing the cars had it download, and it decided to erase all the data we had for the last few days, but I was able to get Officer Bolden out there to reset the device, the radar device, and calculate at least, I think it's about 18 hours of data that I just gave Mr. Turley. So other than that, we're trying to do our best out there, and that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions for the police?
I do. Jay?
Yes.
Hey, can you update us on where we are with radar in regards to the state legislation? Any benefit to you guys getting it? I know I would love to see you guys get it. I'm for you guys getting it. Any update on that?
So I don't know. I know it's moved as further ahead in the Commonwealth as it has ever in my career. So it's hopeful, but I don't know the particulars on it as it is right now. So hopefully it will be a tool that we can use in the near future instead of going out and spending man hours and painting lines and putting ourselves in jeopardy out in traffic. So let's hope. We're the only state in the union that does not let local municipality police officers utilize that device. So hopefully it'll go through.
And just for the record, would it be a benefit to this police department to have radar?
Absolutely. Yeah, and so the way our speed timing devices work are two fixed or painted surfaces on the road set at a calculated distance, and the machine that we use times the vehicle that crosses each line, and it does it in a millisecond, and it gives you the time. So if you don't have the lines painted or marks on the road and have the sight distance to sit and watch it, it makes it difficult. And we live in a terrain that's extremely hills and a lot of blind spots. It's not like a flat, straight road where you can sit and observe traffic. With the radar, it would provide us ability to move anywhere in the township, just as long as we have a sight distance with the radar, and then clock the vehicles with the radar in that manner. So it just gives us mobility, to be honest with you.
So last question. Is there anything the public of North Huntingdon Township can do to help you guys get radar?
You could probably reach out to your local representative and explain to you the problems that not just our community, every community has problems with speeding vehicles. That's the way it is. I talk to chiefs of police throughout Westmoreland County, and we're not unique. Our community has the same problems that any other community is. Every time the sun comes out and it's sunny out and it's warm, that's when the speeds start to go up. So, just reach out to your commissioner and explain that we would like to have a safer community and be able to attack the problems that are important to everyone.
So just for clarification, that representative would be a state representative, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, okay, right, okay. Thank you.
Isn't Pennsylvania like the only state that doesn't allow its local law enforcement to use radar?
Absolutely, yeah. We're the only state in the union that the municipality, police departments, the state police do have rights to use the radar. We're the only state in the union that does not permit local police departments to use that device, that radar device.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on the police report? Thank you, Lieutenant. Emergency Management Report. I don't believe Coordinator Mahinsky is here tonight. Any questions to get back to him for emergency management? Township Engineer Report. Nothing on the report tonight. Planning and Zoning Report. Any questions on the Fire Officials Report tonight? Subdivision Land Development, Director Fonzie.
Yes, I have 5 items set for your approval tonight. The first is Subdivision 4 of 2022, the Maury consolidation, requesting board action to approve this lot consolidation on Walter Avenue.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
The second subdivision is Subdivision 5 of 2022, the Walsh-Steiner-Garlow Plan, requesting board action to approve a boundary line revision in Sheridan Terrace.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and I.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved 7-0.
The third subdivision is subdivision 6 of 2022, the Rebick subdivision, requesting board action to approve a subdivision on Walthour Drive.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and I.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
The fourth subdivision is subdivision 7 of 2022, the Cipra subdivision, requesting board action to approve the subdivision on Cipra Lane.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and I.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
And the last item I have is Site Plan 6 of 2022, the Grandview Senior Residences. And before I read or request a motion, I just want to review what the conditions were that Don Housley set forth from his review that were to be attached to this plan. So the first condition would be that stormwater management and erosion control plans must be approved by the Westmoreland Conservation District. Number 2, the stormwater O&M agreement with North Huntington must be signed and recorded. Number 3, Irwin Borough Council must first approve the portion of the development that includes the 50-unit apartment building located entirely in Irwin Borough. It is my understanding that that already happened last week. Number 4, the township engineer must inspect the condition of Laurel Avenue. Yesterday morning, Township Engineer Bob Robinson inspected both Laurel Avenue and Carruthers Lane yesterday, and I believe you were sent the email in regard to his findings. The fifth condition would be that the applicant will enter into a commercial developers agreement with the township. And last is all outstanding engineering comments from the KU Resources review letters, and it has the specific dates. There was just an update on the 18th that Don Housley sent to the applicant. And the motion would also include a waiver of SALDO Section 515.1.a, and that's with the concrete boundary corners that they would not be placed because there's existing iron pins, and it's basically illegal to remove another surveyor's iron pin. And then one modification is requested, and that is that the paving width of the access road would be 26 feet instead of the required 24 feet per North Huntington standard details. So that would sum up the motion, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or any discussion that would occur now.
Ryan, KU also did additional soil information, and they were, I guess the result of the report was there's some acid soils and some fill at that location. Can you talk to that at all?
I mean, as far as the geotechnical report, Don Housley was okay with that. I know we got an updated grading report with the geotech report and stated that no slope on the site would exceed a 2-to-1 slope, which is allowable per our SALDO and our grading ordinance. But as far as the content of the acid soil, I don't have any further information on that.
Or the fill, the acid rock or the fill?
That would have been a result of the test borings, so whatever development would occur, they would have to engineer it properly to be suitable on those soils.
Since the applicant is only requesting the driveway on the North Huntington side, would those soils be impacted? Would the acid rock or the fill affect the driveway at all?
I really don't know. I didn't get that far into the geotech report. That was our engineer's review.
Thanks.
Ryan, I have a question. Last week, there was some discussion on the slope, and I know you just brought it up. And last week, it was said that the slope did not fall within the SALDO. Now, can you just explain what you just said? Is there something new with the slope?
In our grading ordinance and the SALDO, it says the maximum allowable slope is a 2-to-1 slope, which is essentially a 50% grade slope. So that's the highest that we'll allow without a geotech or an engineer drawing to actually engineer that slope, that if it has to be any steeper, but they're not to that threshold yet. They are at the 2-to-1 level.
So if you were to put an angle of degree on a 2-to-1, would you say that's a 45-degree angle based on a 90? Is that how we could assess the 2-to-1?
That would be a 1-to-1 slope,
1-to-1 would be?
the 45-degree.
Okay, and what would a 2-to-1 be on angle? Degree?
I'm guessing
33?
27 and a half.
27 and a half, okay. Okay.
Or not 27 and a half, 22 and a half, sorry.
22 and a half, okay. If it pleases the board, and if I may have a little bit of lenience, folks, I'm all about empowering people with knowledge. I think knowledge can quell things. If we know stuff, then we don't become so afraid of it. I think we can all agree with that. Not knowing becomes the enemy, and it sets into fear. And with that being said, I would ask the president if we will allow Mr. John Frederick to come up and do some more explaining about this, because what he has is knowledge, and I think it's good to listen to it. I ask that you just do one thing for us. I'm not showing favoritism towards anything, but I want people to have a good knowledge. When you have good intelligence, you can have good decisions. Bad intelligence or no intelligence can create bad decisions. That's why I've asked the board for some leniency to bring Mr. Frederick up to speak on these things, because he is what we refer to as a SME, subject matter expert. You're an engineer, yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Please, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there a specific topic, or how, do you want me to describe the overall engineering aspects of the project to?
Sure, so
kind of
just for
walk
the
you-
record, you were here last week,
Correct.
and you heard the good people up on Carruthers and Laurel, their concerns.
Yes.
Can you please address those concerns in regards to the roads, to the slopes, and so on and so forth? So we all have a good understanding.
Sure.
Please, thank you.
As we started the project, as far as the due diligence and design aspects of the project, well over a year ago, we basically started with a study of the topography, topographic surveys, boundary surveys, understanding the limits of the site, characteristics of the site, site soils. Early on, we had met with Jim Pillsbury and Conservation District staff to kind of set a dialogue in place to understand the importance of managing the stormwater, addressing erosion sediment control aspects of the project, moving into construction, proximity to Tinker's Run, which is the major tributary that comes down, that runs from the southern limits past the library, in behind the library at the base of our slope, and then intersects a tributary along, which parallels Route 30. Tinker's Run at that area has a 236-acre watershed, pretty substantial, that meanders down from the southern limits of the township below Laurel Avenue, again through the site, and then on behind the library. We basically started a dialogue to understand the process, getting through the Conservation District, addressing stormwater management. Through that process as well, through stormwater aspects and best management practices, there was a series of infiltration testing done throughout the site to really understand how water permeates through the site. Current regulations require that we send water through the soil into the subgrade as best and efficiently as we can. In western Pennsylvania, we find that there's really no infiltration aspects. We have clay soils, fine silts. It's not until you get into the river valleys where you've got sands and gravels where you can really get the water through the soil. So on this site, we were not successful in finding infiltration rates, so we initiated best management practices called managed release concepts, where the water is stored within underground systems. We have 2 underground systems, one for the actual 4-story development in Irwin Borough, and one planned at the base of the project limits at the intersection with Laurel Avenue. And those are sized for the rooftops as well as the pavement areas. But what that handles is the managed release concept is water goes through a storage facility, and it's basically to remove total suspended solids, nitrates, and phosphates. So through those processes, we were able to manage the rates of runoff compounded with the fact that this drainage area has a 70% release rate. So again, throttling down the water that is collected through the site, released slower than in existing conditions. So again, it's, in most cases, we have 100% release rates, but in this particular area of the watershed, we are managing the release rates at 70% of the allowable release rate. So again, a pretty significant provision that's in place to handle the stormwater management. On the slope issues, again, we conducted over 20, I think it was 24 test borings throughout the site on the cut and fill slopes. When we talked about the 2-to-1 slopes, the cut slopes that are on the high side lots traveling from south to north, the cut slopes are excavated at 2-to-1 slope, and we've managed to stay within 10 feet of the property that was identified by the township engineer through the review process. So we were able to slide the slope over to adhere to the required setbacks from the adjoining properties. And then on the fill slope sides, where our slopes are 2.5 to 1, so even a more stable condition on the fill side, where we've got toe keys and provisions for the anchoring of the toe slope conditions, but also setting those slopes back at 2.5 to 1. So again, a more stable condition, a better condition than even a 2-to-1 cut slope. On the cut slope side, we are cutting through more competent material, stiffer rock and soil conditions. So again, stable conditions on the high side. On where you've got shallow excavations, we're going to be cutting through general soils and more of the erodible. But as we deepen the cuts, it's more competent soil, stiffer soils, and more competent rock. So again, we have a very good condition below the surface throughout the property limits as well. So again, with the engineering studies and the revision that we submitted on the geotechnical report, it included a global stability analysis, which shows different factors of safety as we cut cross sections through the site. And again, that just shows the stability of a site condition based on cut and fill slopes. When you run these analyses, it delivers a factor of safety in regard to the constructed or cut slopes. So anything above a factor of 1 is a stable condition. We definitely, in the industry, try to achieve a 1.5 factor of safety, which adds another level of safety as we produce these cut and fill slopes.
John, can I get you to hold up a sec?
Yes.
So we had, let's see, 3 folks that are concerned about their property. What can you do? Let me go back. Let me say something for the record, because my next door neighbor, John, if you allow me.
Yes.
Next door neighbor came to me and said, wow, the Trib Live kind of said some things that weren't very nice. Joe, I'm not going to hold you to that, okay? But I will ask you this. Here's what I ask of the media, and this isn't specifically aimed at you. We either start speaking truth or we don't speak at all. We have entered into an age of misinformation and disinformation. One cannot make a good decision based on bad information. I ask that everybody be honest and true so we can move forward, whether we move forward this way or move forward that way. Number 2, this guy and everybody out there that spoke, and I can't speak for my fellow commissioners, but if you were to ask them, we love our seniors. Absolutely love them. Mr. Don Caddick, this was his vision. I spent a lot of time with Mr. Caddick before he passed. Absolutely love and adore the guy. He taught thousands of kids up at that Norwin Senior High School. And all of us came out of there a lot better people because of Mr. Caddick and those like him. I want to hold true to Mr. Caddick's vision. It was to help our seniors. I want that to be known. I want people to know I support our seniors. I support a safe, clean, fantastic environment for them to flourish for the rest of their days of their life. And that's all I want and wish for them. With that said, we also have to consider the residents of the surrounding area to make sure that they also have that lifestyle of safe, secure, and happy. That's why we're having this meeting. That's why we are talking. No talk is going to create problems. We have to air this out so we can figure this out. This isn't let's decide today and start building tomorrow, because we all have to do our due diligence. We all have fears and intrepidation that have to be. As a contractor, it is up to them to do their due diligence and take our fears and quell them through science and geotech and so on and so forth. And that's why you're here, and that's why I asked you to come up and speak tonight. You have that information. You have that knowledge. This is where I am coming from. With that said, there was a gentleman that, let's see, Tom, Jeffrey, Leslie, Brian. Brian's concerned about his backyard. What can you do to address Brian and he's lost 5 feet over a period of time? What can you do to assure that he won't lose any more of his yard? And so, would you please address that concern?
Sure.
Thank you.
There was a reference to a storm line that is at the rear of the property. There are several pipes throughout the proposed complex here. We will be intercepting those pipes. We've got those locations identified. So in regard to pipes that kind of freely drain currently onto bare soils, I mean, that's where the erosion occurs. So every time you've got a rainfall event and you've got a pipe in full flow condition, you've got an excessive amount of velocity exiting a pipe, hitting bare soils, and each time that event occurs, you lose more soil. So naturally, I think over time, you're going to see material and erosion occur, especially on slopes like this. However, through the plans that we're generating here, and we're intercepting those waters, so again, we're providing pipe connections from those discharge locations and piping them through our facility and conveying them through piped conditions and discharging to Tinker's Run with a stable condition with outfalls, riprap energy dissipators. So again, those conditions which occur over decades in regard to the construction of the roads, backyards, roof water, that over time people add additions, sheds, what have you, that increases rates of runoff over time, over decades. So at this point in time, what we are planning to do is, again, intercept all those pipes that freely discharge onto the property, collect, convey, and manage those discharge locations to a more stable condition.
And what safety mitigations will you put in place that can assure Brian doesn't lose any more of his yard?
The studies that have been done, again, we're proposing the 2-to-1 cut slopes. The geotech analyses that have been done, we created the.
So you're going to have bare soil. What are you going to plant on top of that bare soil to prevent that erosion?
There's seeding and the topsoil placement plus the matting in regard to the protection. So again, as contractors build these slopes, they are vegetated immediately as slopes are built or cut slopes are created.
Does that just include grass? What about trees? As we know, trees anchor the soil. Trees are better than the grass. I've seen many hillsides planted with grass, and at first it looks beautiful when it blooms, but you get a heavy rain, and what happens?
It washes out.
You're darn right. So we want to prevent this. So can we see trees and shrubbery in those places to really anchor that soil?
The trees and shrubbery we do have a landscape plan. We can take a look at reassessing and relocating. We've planted the landscape plan in accordance with the requirements of where we're disturbing the streetscape scenario, but there could be a reallocation of the quantities of plants based on the specific locations of some of these cut slopes.
All right, and what do you plan for Carruthers and Laurel if those roads, which are currently marked at 6 tons and 6 and 8, or just 6 and 6? Carruthers is 6. And Carruthers is 8, excuse me, and Laurel would be 6? Mm-hmm. So what are you guys willing to do to ensure that our residents of North Huntingdon continue to have a safe road?
Those posted weight limits are typically in place to manage typical daily traffic. However, when there's excessive loads planned, for instance, a construction activity, bonds are required. So the developer will be required to place road bonds to ensure that the conditions of the roads are managed, observed, inspected, and really documented as the project proceeds. So the
And what
bonds
is
are-
the value of that bond per 1 mile?
Each mile of road is required for $12,500 per mile of road. that
And what
follows-
happens if the damage is more severe and greater than $12,500?
That is the responsibility of the developer. So what happens typically, and again, I don't know in regard to Public Works or your engineer, but in most cases, the general contractor will work with the township as the bonds are secured and put in place for the road. So there's pre-inspection activities that occur jointly with the township and the developer or their general contractor. So there's pre-inspections that the roads are visually inspected prior to construction to observe deformation, extent of cracking, areas where maybe there is deformation in the pavement, cross-section. So that's a documented condition prior to construction. So then the route is developed, and then the bonds are in place based on the $12,500 per mile of road that the route would be identified. And then as the project goes on, again, there, depending on the frequency, or at the end of construction, there is a post inspection that occurs to compare the differences, or the chance that nothing has changed in regard to the conditions of the roads.
And I'm going to think lastly, and I'm not too sure this is right up your alley. I want to see this again. I'm going to reiterate, and I want the media to know this. This guy is all for the seniors in our community. When I say our community, North Huntingdon and Irwin, because this was Mr. Caddick's dream. I've known him for, my God, what, Leslie? 30, 40 years. Let me add this. And I shared this with Leslie. I spoke to her today on her way back from Philadelphia. This is what I think of Mr. Caddick. One of my greatest compliments that I'd ever received in my life was when I was at his funeral. God rest his soul. Somebody asked me if I was a Caddick kid. That was an amazing compliment, just knowing the man. And if you never got to meet him, John, you missed one of the finest human beings on this earth.
Sounds like I did.
You did, brother. Yeah. I want to see his dream and his vision come to place. With that being said, what if this property between Carruthers and Laurel doesn't work out for you? Are you guys open to another site within North Huntingdon?
I have to defer that to the developer.
Is that Eric?
Yes.
Okay, all right. John, that's all I have for you. Eric, I'm going to ask you to come up in a second, but John,
Hey,
Mr.
Eric,
President,
do you have any
thank you.
questions on the proposal? I mean, we had our chance for a work session discussion topic with the developers. If you have any questions for Ryan or our
Okay.
staff, I would appreciate it. I mean, I gave you
I-
a fair amount of time.
Yes, you
to-
did, and I'm grateful,
To
brother.
speak.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions for our planning director, Ryan.
Okay. Could I ask Ryan, and would Ryan know? Ryan, would Eric and the developers be up for relocating and still helping with Mr. Caddick's vision and dream?
I mean, it comes down to land ownership. This is the land that they happen to own right now.
Yeah.
So as far as scouting other locations, I can't speak to that on their behalf.
Does any other Board of Commissioners have any discussion or questions?
I have a question to Ryan and our solicitor. Based off of all of the requirements, would you say that all have been met to move forward?
I spoke to Don Housley yesterday over the phone, and he claimed he felt confident that everything that they've submitted meets all of our township ordinances.
Have you seen anything that doesn't meet the township ordinances?
I have not, no.
Thank
Do
you.
we have, Ryan, just an in case things fall apart? Like, I don't want to see the people, the residents, the current residents of this township bear a burden. Is there what would be the word?
That's why the roads and everything would be bonded. They would have a development bond, which we would go into the agreement with, so.
Yeah, there's a
outside
performance
that-
bond.
That bond, that's what
And
you're
about
guaranteed
What
would be.
about the private property of the folks? They're
It's,
concerned.
for the grading
Is there-
performance bond, I believe it's up to $1 million for adjacent properties. If you look in our, grading out, excavation and filling ordinance, I believe it's $1 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
This is the information folks need to know. This is why I'm bringing up so many questions. Again, knowledge is information. Information is knowledge. So we can make better decisions, and we can ease and quell what we fear.
In regards to Crothers and Laurel, outside of the bonding scenario, can we work with the developer to get funding to fix these roads that are crumbling? There's so much infrastructure money out there. I'm sure that we could do something. Eric, I don't know if you could speak to this, but maybe working with our state legislator to build up Crothers and Laurel so we don't have these concerns. I mean, I know we can't go much wider on Crothers, but
If you want them to.
yeah, please, thank you.
Again, Eric Spiegel, Westmoreland County Housing Authority, doing business as Grandview Senior LLC. We do have a stakeholder meeting May 10th with Irwin Borough, Representative Dunbar, and Westmoreland County representatives to discuss funding options for Carruthers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Solicitor Alexander, I have one question for you. If I'm not mistaken, it seems like the board has a lot of questions that still need to be answered for this project. We would be able to table this day motion that's on the agenda tonight. We still have 90 days from when it was heard by the Planning and Zoning, so maybe some of the commissioners can go to your meeting on May 10th and hear some of these other questions. I had a long list of questions, but I think if it's in favor, I'll make the motion to table this motion that's on the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor by stating aye.
You have to, well, there's no discussion on a motion to
Yep.
table.
So all in favor by stating aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Roll call vote, Manager Turley.
Commissioner Stump,
Yes
Yes.
is to table.
Yes.
Commissioner Atwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
No.
Commissioner Zona,
No.
Commissioner Wengren,
No.
Commissioner Goss,
Geez, Mike, thanks for saving me for last. Wow. Oh, my God. I could really use an alien spaceship to land on in front of 30 right now. Hey, folks, this is a tough one. I have to say this. There's no decision up here that's made easily. I want you guys to know that. Oh, man. Geez, Mike, really, thanks a lot. Wow. I really, honest to God, and I want to ask for some people are going to be happy with the decision. I'm going to make some people are not going to be happy, but please understand, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm going to say it again. I want to see Mr. Caddick's dream come to fruition. I want to see the people of this township, our seniors, have a fantastic place. Eric, John, I saw the drawings last week. Really, the place does look beautiful. It really does. I want it to be safe, happy, healthy environment for the residents.
Solicitor's report, Solicitor Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's one action item on the solicitor's report for this month. It's an action to approve or deny the request of Megan Javer for conditional use for backyard chicken keeping.
I would like to make a motion that we approve this with conditions that the Javors agree to the other ordinance that we had originally proposed as far as chicken keeping, and that if their situation changes as far as their ADA request, they're to let us know. And if their any of their chickens pass away, that they are capped at 4.
Saw a motion made, no second. Any action on the original solicitor's report motion?
I'll make a motion that we deny the request of the conditional use. I'll leave it for a second before I get into my comments.
I'll second that.
Okay, if I could.
Discussion, go ahead,
Yeah,
Ron.
discussion. I think from the evidence that was presented in our hearing last week, the Javors got the chickens back in 2000. God bless you. They didn't check to even see if they were legal before they got them. They didn't look into it. They came to know that they were illegal. They attended commissioners' meetings here when we discussed it. They knew it was illegal. They never came forward. They said they sat through all these meetings deciding what they should do. They did not even attempt to report themselves until they received a letter from the township. That's number one. Number two, again, they have 7 chickens, which seems, from all intents and purposes in the hearing, to be an arbitrary number that was set. Again, we can go into every detail of this. It was set by a doctor that is not even qualified legally to make that determination and to prescribe that, from what we were learned from our solicitor last week. The location of the chickens, again, to even have any conditions on this, first of all, because I asked her, 7 chickens, I said, even if this was approved under what our proposed ordinance was, which was 6 chickens, would you be able to get rid of one? And she said, well, I'd have to look if I could get rid of one. She wouldn't even commit that she would get rid of one. And second, and the location would violate our proposed ordinance that we had also.
Also, not to interrupt you, Ron,
Go
it
ahead.
does violate our ordinance
Yes.
on farm and livestock. It's 811.2. It states any house feeding structure shall be centrally located in all cases and be located a minimum of 250 feet away from property line.
Right, and this, again, according to the testimony, this is right on the property line, right up against the fence. And in Ms. Javor's own testimony, that's the only place in her yard she can put it. Because it was asked, why is it in a different location, closer to your house, away from the neighbors? She said that was the only place she could put it, so I can't see how we can allow them conditions when she basically said here she's not moving it and she's not getting rid of any chickens. So I'm against it, and I think we should vote no. And one last thing, we did get one letter which was in the record that supported it, her neighbor, but we also have 3 complaints. Whether it's from one person or not, it's 3 complaints. You have to look at that too, I believe. So I would, that's why I would deny it.
Any other board discussion?
I do have something. And I just have 2 questions for Ryan and then two observations that I have. First off, does a conditional use tie to the property forever like a zoning variance would? Does it expire with the owners? Can you explain that?
I believe it does follow the property. If the Javors were to move, I believe the next owner would have that available to them. But I'm not sure if they would choose to use that, if there's a time limit. There's nothing in our zoning ordinance or the PAMPC that states that if that use is not used for 12 months or 18 months, that it goes away and somebody would have to reapply. That language just isn't in our ordinances. but it does stay with the property.
Can we
And-
make that a condition?
You
we
could put
make-
any condition you want on this.
Second question, the conditional use application process, do we have a process in place for the applications prior to this?
No, one had to be created from scratch, basically, because any other conditional use that we've had in the past was handcuffed to a site plan or subdivision. So those would come through together. So this is the first standalone conditional use application that we've had, at least as long as I've been here. So that procedure had to be created.
And, I'm sorry, one more follow-up. Is it safe to say, had the Javors not come through, that we would not have implemented a process at this point?
Well, no, since the ordinance was passed last year to allow the use of backyard chicken keeping, that was definitely something that we needed to have ready. Whether it was the Javors or not, it could have been who's ever applying next.
But like, at this point, had they not come through, would we have?
They kicked it into gear for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. My concerns about this, I have three. First off is I question the method that we use for collecting complaints. There is no evidence of even being tied to a real person, only that there's 3 independent emails. I personally have 4. I think it prevents the Sixth Amendment rights from the Javors to be able to confront their accusers. Secondly, there was no opposition present to be heard at any of this. No opposition, and we also had the support shown for this by their neighbors. I don't think that after reviewing all of everything and the application, I don't feel we should deny the request.
I would like to run on the tailcoats of Jason and add, Megan does meet the definition of the disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. She also meets the Fair Housing Act and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. You're treading dangerously on law. I am for her receiving this conditional. I think she has every right to apply, and I think she has every right to have what she needs.
Since
So
we are
she can
talking
have-
about law real quick, Eric, can the solicitor please confirm what Eric has said? Is that correct?
Sure. With regard to the ADA, I don't have enough knowledge with regard to the disability, but I do know that there aren't emotional support animals under the ADA. There's only service animals, so they don't qualify under the ADA for sure. Under the Federal Fair Housing Act, that does permit emotional support animals. So if there's a legitimate disability, then you might have to consider a reasonable accommodation, and then it becomes what's reasonable. Well, they happen to have 7 chickens now, and so this doctor prescribed 7 chickens. I don't know that that's reasonable. I think that I think that if you're going to look at it in a medical way, as opposed to whether they meet or don't meet the ordinance, then I think you need some further review. I think that you need to look into what is the nature of the disability, what sort of interaction has the doctor had. I do know that Bruce made an opinion about the qualifications of the doctor. I think it was more attuned to the virtualness as opposed to whether he actually had the medical ability to issue that prescription, because I think that those doctors do have that medical ability. But I think there are a lot other issues that need to be looked at if you're going to take action on the issue of the disability at this time.
Mr. Solicitor, I would have just asked, on the Fair Housing Act, and I looked these up and read all of these in their entirety, I think that, from what I read, that refers to not discriminating against somebody in leasing a house, the sale of a house, providing a mortgage. It doesn't say anything about a government having to allow somebody to have a pet.
It doesn't, it does not, and I can tell you, I've researched it as well, and I'm aware of only one case where these emotional support animals were litigated in federal court down south somewhere. And originally, they were turned down, and now it's in federal court, and I don't know that there's been a final decision. So I tend to agree with you, but again, there are issues out there, I think, that still need to be resolved if you're going to look at it that way.
My own opinion is that, you know, there's many of us that stand for liberty, and this is an issue over liberty, and it's also an issue over someone needing emotional support and having an outlet for that. And I think that this is more than a reasonable accommodation if you set conditions. And I had previously asked the couple if they were willing to go with the conditions of the original ordinance that we proposed. And the answer was yes, except for the number, possibly the number of chickens. And if we put a provision, like Jason mentioned, that as soon as they no longer have the house, that special condition expires. And if they have 7 chickens now, that they're capped out when those chickens pass away to 4. That was the original ordinance proposal, and that covers everything as far as distance to the property line, if they're willing to move that coop according to the original proposal, so that it was far away from the neighbors, and keep them enclosed, and meet all the other requirements. They're addressing our concerns.
And I would argue, again, not to beat a dead horse, but emotional support chickens, they have them, and it was brought up in the hearing last week, they have them at the farthest point of their yard, as far away from their house as possible. If you have something for emotional support, people that have emotional support dogs have them with them everywhere. They take them on an airplane, they sit on their lap. They have them at the very back portion of their yard. And the testimony of Mrs. Javor was she's on bed rest right now for whatever condition she has. She's on bed rest, so I don't see how these chickens are really emotionally supporting her. That's how I look at it. And I'm going to repeat my call that I bring up all the time. We reward people for bad behavior is what we try to do here, and I won't do it. People can't follow the law. If you look up about chicken keeping, the very first thing, and I Googled it and read 100 articles, the very first thing is check where you live and see what the rules are before you do, because a lot of places do not allow chickens. That's the first thing in everything, so.
Any other board discussion?
One comment, excuse me. I'm not a fan of chickens, not at all. I wouldn't want my neighbor to have them. But I will say this, that Mrs. Javor jumped through every hoop that the township put in front of her. Had a public hearing. We did have one identifiable support letter. We had anonymous complaints, which if this was my neighbor, I would be at the hearing speaking. So I was leaning towards approval. So I don't think I can support denial.
Any other board discussion? I just have a few things. Our current township ordinance that's actually in place, like I said, it's ordinance 811, farm and livestock. The area requirements for R2 district, which this is R2 district, is 20 acres. And then, like I stated before, section 811.2, any housing or feeding structure shall be centrally located in all cases and located a minimum of 250 feet from the property line. I don't even know if would 250 feet be possible at anywhere on their property to be from the property line in any direction. And that was my main thing as well. During our public hearing, I asked a question, would they even applied for the application if they weren't cited, and the answer was, I don't know. So to me, that's a no. Kind of what Ron said as well. If you were, I guess, I'm not saying they were a bad chicken keeper. They had a complaint that chickens got loose, of noise and of smell. I think that covers kind of a lot of the basis that we had when we had the great chicken debate a little while ago. So I can't support this. And even if I think I could possibly get my head around it, like Virginia said, and I wasn't in favor of keeping chickens in any neighbor's backyard. But for them not to move the structure to by its house, if it's a emotional support pet, you would think that you would want it closest to the house or even in the house, let alone the furthest point away from your structure of your home. Any other board discussion? All right, motion for denial and a second. All in favor by saying an aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call vote. Manager Turley?
Commissioner Stump,
No.
Commissioner Atwood,
No.
Commissioner Gray,
No.
Commissioner Zona,
Yes.
Commissioner Wengren,
No.
Commissioner Goss,
No.
Commissioner Haggis.
Yes.
So instead of trying to formulate another motion to approve, you can do that, but I would just, at this point, because the board seems to be pretty divided on the issue, I think we have time to take it back and look at it for 30 days and maybe bring it back and put it on the agenda at that time. We might be able to have a little more consensus.
With conditions.
If that's
Because I agree with Virginia, too.
If
If
that's the
they
mandate.
agree to some conditions,
All right. I
Is
guess,
there a problem putting forth another motion
No.
tonight?
well, I would like to see the conditions before we vote. Have them before us to debate.
And maybe I could ask this, Ryan, do you have that old proposed ordinance that you could read the conditions of that?
I have, yeah, there's several drafts. I don't know if anybody ever concurred on a recent or the most recent version. That just kind of spun out and didn't really go anywhere. But I do have at least 4 drafts. So we could take a look at the most recent one. I thought that the one that we looked at, though, had a minimum 1 acre lot size, though. I think that's the last one that
Correct.
we talked about. I know some earlier ones had a 10,000 square foot minimum. So again, I don't know if we want the most recent one, so somewhere in there, we'd probably have to revisit that. We do have 45 days to render a decision based on the public hearing. So right now, I believe, I was talking to Craig today, we have 39 days left. So if at next month's work session, we can hammer out some conditions and then possibly a motion at the following regular meeting. But in the meantime, I can provide you with all the drafts if you guys want to pick through them and try to come to a consensus.
And I can look further at the emotional support issue as well.
I was specifically talking about the most recent one that was for 10,000 square foot lot.
Okay.
It-
Yeah, I'll look
all
through
of the
those and we'll,
conditions with that.
I'll get those in your hands.
So a motion to the table would be in order.
Yep.
Motion to table.
Second.
all in favor of motion to table, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Roll call vote. Manager Turley?
Commissioner Stump,
Yes.
Commissioner Atwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Zona,
No.
Commissioner Wengren,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
Yes.
Commissioner Haggis.
No. Motion passes to table 5-2. I believe that concludes your report, Solicitor Alexander.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Yep. Thank you. Township Manager Report. Manager Turley?
First item is an action to approve the March check register.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor by saying an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
The second item is, for your information, is the March 2022 budget report. Item 3 is a motion to support the Earth Day cleanup project on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Lindsay, were you able to get some additional information for the board?
Yeah, I spoke to Westmoreland Cleanways, the executive director. I'm sorry. I went up to Westmoreland Cleanways and picked up all of our supplies and spoke to the executive director. I've also been in contact with the chief of police to support us and to be out on the roads with us for safety, as well as Rich Albert in a public works truck with lights, just for extra safety, and to gather the trash bags or the garbage. When I have asked about your question about the boots, they said it wasn't necessary. That really all that's necessary is for PennDOT to know if we're gonna be on state roads and to wear the vests.
Were you able to ask, is this a Cleanways project or is it a project of the township?
Well, it's me acting in my township role, so asking others to support me if you so wish.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's, just to clarify, it's a township project, right? That's what we're voting on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were you able to get something from PennDOT to be on Route 30?
The Cleanways works with PennDOT, and there's no issues being on Route 30. I did put a call into PennDOT, so I'm waiting for somebody to call me back, just because Cleanways didn't have any signs. They were all, they didn't have any for me to borrow this time, but they said it wasn't really necessary, but I'm reaching out to PennDOT to see if I can get any signs from them.
You mean traffic control
Yeah.
signs?
Yeah, just clean up crew ahead or something like that.
Okay.
They usually have them, but when I went up today, he didn't have any on site. They were all being used.
LT, will we, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
LT, will we get police support?
So we have done this in the past. We just did one I want to say last weekend. Normal Landscape got a crew together. They have a lot of pride in the township. And I was requested to race for grace by Alf. I don't know if anybody knows Alfie. Great guy. He actually headed the organization and got a bunch of volunteers. I believe it was 7 a.m. They gathered. They got reflective vests, and I requested the crew to give them just an escort. They went from Norman Avenue up to Thompson Lane, turned around, and then they came back. It didn't take very long, and it was on a Sunday morning, so I think time has a lot of factor in safety. So Sunday mornings are really good. Traffic flow is extremely low. So that really has to go into effect as far as whenever a decision's made. So, and I would really like it if the police department would be involved in some of the decision-making. So.
Thank you.
So you were on Route 30 for that?
Yes, they stay on a berm, and then we normally will have a lead and a follow vehicle with emergency lights on, shutting down the slow lane of traffic. And they move at a half-decent pace. You know, they're only doing short stints of the roadway. So, and the traffic just goes around you. It's not a problem. So, of course, I have to have it approved by my chief. I have to make sure everybody knows that.
I did speak to Chief Rizzo about it, and he said anything I need, he completely supports this, and he will have officers on the road for Saturday morning.
And you're planning at this Saturday? For what time?
Meeting here at 9:30.
So this is the first I'm hearing about it, and I wish I would have known it earlier, because I would have suggested Chief Rizzo. Sometimes he, talks to me. Sometimes he doesn't. I would have suggested Sunday morning, just for your safety, because we can't guarantee it. That would have been much better but 9:30 on a Saturday, especially when it's gonna be sunny and 70 degrees, there's gonna be more of a traffic flow, so. Well, that was what was decided. Okay, sure. Yep. Sure.
I will abstain from this vote.
Is there any other board discussion? I believe, Lindsay, you spoke, and we did have some sort of waiver form for volunteers to sign as well. All right, any other board discussion? I have a motion and a second. All those in,
Lindsay, based on what Lieutenant McCurdy said, you know, I like Sunday mornings for church. This is a noble cause to clean up our community. Would you consider Sunday morning based on the traffic and the safety that Lieutenant McCurdy is more aware of, that Sunday morning, unfortunately, and I say that again because, you know, church is important. But I'll tell you what, safety of life and limb, pretty big issue. Would you consider Sunday, just based on what LT McCurdy said?
I'm not opposed to it, but I have been advertising to get volunteers to do this, so I'd rather stick with the plan for Saturday morning.
Sure, I get it.
any further board discussion? All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention by Commissioner Gray. So motion passes 6-0 with one abstention.
Item 4 is an action to approve a resolution for plan revision for new land development for Nathan and Jessica Alberts on Meadow Road.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved 7-0.
Item 5 is an action to approve the disbursement of Lincoln Corner Plan escrow funds with the remaining balance of $10,073.95.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved 7-0.
Item 6 is a motion to approve advertising of ordinance number 2280, restricting right turns from Route 30 eastbound to Mountain View Place.
Motion to approve advertising of ordinance number 2280, restricting right turns from Route 30 eastbound to Mountain View.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Item 7 is a motion to approve the revised drainage easement at the Kearney property, tax map 54-06-10-0-179.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Item 8 is a motion to request an engineering study on the posted speed limit on Robbins Station Road by
Motion.
PennDOT.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Rich has second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Item 9 is a motion to approve a revised township email policy that is all township communications from staff and consultant will be sent to township-provided email addressed at nhtpa.us to commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I had asked for this to be removed from the agenda. I will make a motion to table because we have nothing in front of us that says what the existing policy is and what the revisions are in writing. I know it sounds like it's not complicated, however, I don't know what's in the current policy that we're revising, and I would like to see that and have discussion on it first. Motion to table?
I don't think we can,
Point of order, Mr. President, a motion to table cannot be debated.
And I don't think you can have as a point of order, I don't think you can have a second motion while there's one actively on it.
You can
That's what
motion to table,
yeah.
but I would need a second on the table.
I'll second.
All in favor of tabling the email policy, state aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Nay.
Nay. Roll call vote, Manager Turley?
Commissioner Stump,
No?
Commissioner Atwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Zona,
No.
Commissioner Wedengren,
No.
Commissioner Goss,
No.
Commissioner Higas.
No. Motion fails 5-2. So Ron made a motion, and I believe there was a second on the email policy.
Yeah, if I can,
Yeah.
under comments, I would just, I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's an email policy that, I mean, the township managers just read it. The email policy is going to be that all commissioners and all employees have to use an NHTPA email for township business. I don't think seeing that in writing is going to change anyone's mind. I mean, it's very simple. It's not splitting.
does
splitting.
the-
Can I finish? Can I finish?
Sure.
We're not splitting the atom or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's an email policy, and we should all be using an email policy. And we see in federal government how people try to skirt around not using an email for certain reasons. So I just think it's a no-brainer, and it's common sense, and I mean, it's very simple to understand.
Any other board discussion?
Mr. President,
Yeah.
my concern about this is to echo Commissioner Gray. I don't know what the policy is now. I haven't seen it. I think that there's more to it than just that one or two sentence, and I think it needs to be ironed out some. I'm not gonna vote yes for something I can't read myself.
To give a little
Right.
background. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I was just going to say, I echo Commissioner Atwood's sentiment. I don't know what the current policy is. I would like to see that first. And if we're going to compare it, federal government, I think right now we have a pretty authoritarian government, federal government, and I don't want to see that creeping into the local level where you will do this because I say it's a good idea.
So going historically, our former manager wanted to get everyone North Huntington Township emails, staff and commissioners. So in case there was a right to know request or any litigation with the township that we could readily available, get the emails. That is not mandated. That was just a recommendation. It was never a problem. I received an email from a resident that another commissioner received that he stated why was a certain commissioner not using a North Huntington Township email. That's why I brought this policy up, because that particular commissioner did not want to use a township email. So like Manager Turley said, all the policy states is that all communication from staff or consultants dealing with township business will be sent to all township commissioners at the nht.pa.us email.
Now, go ahead.
And I would just like to add, this isn't, I'm not for government overreach and Big Brother watching us. That's not what this is about. I'll repeat what I said last week. If there's a right to know, as the president just stated, it's very easy for them to get it out of the cloud or on a server or wherever these emails are kept right now. If somebody's using private email, and this has happened in different organizations, as our solicitor said last week, what's going to happen if somebody on his board is using a personal email and gets a right to know? That person is going to be brought in, and plug their phone in and download it, and that's what's gonna happen. It happened. It happens. I know people that it happened to on school boards. They download their whole personal phone, and a judge sits down and goes through it. That's gonna cost the township money. We're opening the township up to that. And I will never agree for that, where we're gonna download someone's phone. Regardless, I don't care what's in it or not, but it's just gonna cost money. And it's just, I mean, it's more professional to have a uniform government address, and I think it's a no-brainer, as I said.
And I'll agree with Ron. I think the move has the potential to save the township a lot of money. And it's used just in about every other organization. And I think our IT person, it's easy to just pass along, just forward your email through that. So it's not a matter that you can't use that, your personal email, you can. It just routes through that.
If I may, though, it does not say that in the policy.
No, that's something that.
That's just a known thing.
If it doesn't say it in the policy, then, I mean, if it's not there, it's not there. I mean, I can't,
The emails are sent to the North Huntington Township email. What you do from them with there is your own personal discretion. Like
That-
Virginia said, that could be forwarded to a different email if you have an easier time reading an email is on a different server or a different site.
That's like when you get a company phone and your company tells you have to use that company phone. You can forward all the calls that go to your company phone. Everyone does that. You forward them right to your phone and use it.
but.
You're still using the company
That's written
number.
out in the policy, though, that
No, it's
they're
not.
available. I would tend to question that being a business owner.
The business tells you to use this phone, and you know what? You call that number and it's gonna show up in my other phone. They don't know that.
All right. We
It's just
have
a matter of a setting, really. to set it.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor for voting in favor for the email policy, state aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No,
Roll call vote. Manager Turley?
Commissioner Stump,
Yes.
Commissioner Atwood,
No.
Commissioner Gray,
no,
Commissioner Zona,
Yes.
Commissioner Wedengren,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
Yes.
Commissioner Hagus.
Yes. Motion passes 5-2.
Item 10 is a motion to appoint Brandon Leonati to the Recreation Advisory Board with a term expiration of December 31st, 2027.
Motion to appoint Brandon Leonati?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor by saying an aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion approved, 7-0.
Item 12 is a motion to hire Aaron Bowen for a seasonal position in the Parks Department.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion?
I do have a question, and maybe I'm just not familiar with it, but are these offers of employment conditional upon anything, you know, drug testing, anything like that?
Yes. Yes, there's drug testing, yes. And a basic check, but not the other. They're not, they don't work with the kids in programming like others, so they don't go through the full thing, but they do have drug testing, yes.
Any other discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor by saying an aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
I see I skipped number 11, so.
That's okay.
So,
Go back.
okay, item 11 is a motion to appoint Harry Falk as the Township Secretary, Township Right to Know Officer, and Township Treasurer.
Motion to
Motion.
approve?
Second.
Discussion? Mike, and do we have an effective date on that? It's gonna be,
May 2nd,
okay.
2022.
With that being a motion with effective date, May 2nd, 2022.
I'll amend my motion.
Yeah. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Item 13, the last item today, is a motion to hire Vincenzo Fiorilli for a seasonal position in the Public Works Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Any further board comments?
I have a comment. I'd like to just repeat what I said last month, and going forward, I think I'll repeat this every month until people get sick of it. If I remember, I will, because I'm sure I'll forget. But I call on our tax collector to come in here and get this office open, the tax office. If you look on your tax bill, and as I said last month, when I got my tax bill and looked, I wasn't upset about the price on here. I was upset it said due to COVID, the office will not be open. I think we're beyond that right now. The mask mandate for travel and airlines was just thrown out yesterday. It's ridiculous. People want to come in here and talk to somebody in that tax office. And I know the girls, Juliana and Kim, get beat up at the front desk when they go back and the place is closed and they stop you guys and beat you guys up over it. It's unfair to our employees here. And our tax collector just ran for another term and just got sworn in here in January. She needs to uphold her oath, and she needs to get in here and open that office. And I'm going to keep calling on her every month to get in here and open this office, because if this whole year goes by and she leaves that closed due to COVID, that's a travesty.
To piggyback off of what Commissioner Zena said, Mr. Solicitor, do we have any authority as a township to influence that?
The only authority that you have over the tax collector is the extra compensation that you provide her. So you can't compel her to be here, but you can do like the federal government does and say that if you don't do it, you're going to lose this, and this. That's your only action.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe state statute has, I think it's, if not mistaken, like 3 or 4 days a year, they have to actually legitimately have office being open.
Yeah, I think that they can have the office in their house, though. I don't.
Yeah, but it has to be actually open.
Yes.
For the public, about, I think, 3 or 4 days,
Yes.
if I remember the statute correctly. I asked Manager Turley to give me some figures that I think he could share with the board as well about some of the other office supplies, what Solicitor Alexander might be speaking to, and even Jason, that the township does help the tax office with providing some of that. So maybe in the future years, we don't provide those benefits to the tax office with supplies and things of that nature if we don't get a minimum of days open a week.
I mean, I wouldn't see a need for any office supplies if the office is not open.
Correct. So, I mean, that's some information that Manager Turley could share with the board. Maybe we could discuss that in the future. Any other further board comments?
Yes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No, no,
Go
I'm-
ahead, Eric.
Are you sure?
I'll take a drink.
I'm gonna try to be quick, but not too quick.
Maybe I should go.
Okay.
Go.
All right. As you guys know, I currently sit where a good guy sat. Mr. Dwayne Casser, former commissioner, Ward 7. He needs our help. Please. He needs our help not only financially through donations, but I'm also going to ask, please, prayer. He needs a miracle. And please also include his family. Take a look at this. Please come out, support us, or support Dwayne if you can. This is the date. I'd love to see everybody there, and we appreciate any support anybody is willing to offer for Dwayne. Number 2, I'm going to ask the board for a redress. I think we missed some critical information in regards to Mr. Bruce Hamilton, who has the property over on Bonnie and Kansas. Upon learning further information, it's not what we thought. And so I am asking for a redress, and so is Mr. Hamilton. I called him on the way over here tonight, and I'd really like to bring the newest, latest information, and because of the findings, that I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised to hear. So I do ask that a redress be made for next month for Mr. Bruce Hamilton. Thank you.
Director Fonzie, I believe that was a property that was off of Route 30. That's a commercial property that they wanted to rezone, I guess I should say, for lack of better terms. he would be able to reapply for that same property if he
He
so
could
desired.
reapply, yeah. With the board's denial, he had no route for an
Exactly,
appeal.
but he could reapply, so
He could
that would be my
reapply.
recommendation to him, Eric, if you want to reach out to him, just to have him reapply, and then he would have that venue to go back through the process, and he could speak to the board. I believe he was actually in the audience that night we voted, but he didn't speak. So, maybe next time he could speak and, speak to the board.
And he actually missed his public hearing, so there would be another public hearing
Yeah,
scheduled that
exactly.
he would
So
be
that
able
would
to.
be, my recommendation to you, Eric, is just have him reapply if he's interested.
And for what it's worth, I know this is probably going to upset some of the folks up on Bonnie and Kansas, but if you guys knew what I knew, I think we could come to a unanimous agreement that it's going to, I just want everybody to open up their minds and hear what he has to say, and it will quell your fears, I promise you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Gray?
Okay, now that you revised your email policy, I would like my email address removed from the township website altogether and have my phone number put up there, my home phone, instead of an email address. And that way you can send all your things to the Board of Commissioners, and they will get to me according to Jonathan and your statement earlier. But I don't want that email address published. Or are you going to forbid that?
No, I mean, as part of the policy that was read, there was nothing stated. Originally, I mentioned about putting that on the webpage. If you do not want your email listed on the webpage, I personally don't have a problem with it. It might seem a little bit odd why there would be one commissioner that doesn't have one. I believe myself and I believe Eric both have our email and phone numbers listed. But if you'd rather just have your email or phone number listed, that I don't have a problem with that.
Yes, I would like to try that.
I don't personally have a problem with that. If any of the other board members have a problem with it, I think some residents might think it's odd. You're setting yourself apart differently than the others, but
That's
if
me.
that's what you're looking for, then I'm personally okay with it.
How would office communication that is emailed to us?
The office communication is going to be the same thing. Rich is requesting that on the North Huntington Township webpage where it lists commissioner's contact information, email, phone number. He would not like a email listed for him, just a phone number. I'm okay with that. If the board's okay with that, and if we can have a consensus, and that's what Rich wants, and we can make him happy. All right, you got a consensus there, Rich.
Motion to adjourn.
Just got one further board comment. I just would like to thank Manager Turley for filling in for us. I know we will have a new manager coming in here shortly, but Mike, I do appreciate all your hard work and dedication as always, so thank you.
Thank you. It's been several times, but there was always challenges. And I want to thank all the directors for sure, because they certainly know the business, and it's really, really helpful. And then there's some staff people that were really, really helpful too during this time. So I want to acknowledge some of that, going through names and so forth. But I do want to certainly point out what I thought was some extraordinary work, particularly by some of the directors. So thank you.
Thank you, Manager. All right, there was a motion, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Discussion. Motion adjourned, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 8:50.